Will Jinx die in Season 2 of Arcane? If you were like me 1 week ago, you'd probably be saying, no, how is that possible? Literally, she's in the game. Like, they're all alive. But what if I told you that League of Legends is not the safe haven that we think it is? Hey everybody, my name's Melija and I'll be your host for today. And in this video, we're going to be taking a closer look at all the signs on the wall that is saying Jinx is cooked, beyond cooked, dead, gone. She's not making it. Before we could get into this theory though, I first need to shine some light onto what made me open my mind to the possibility that League of Legends isn't the safe haven that we think it is. About a week ago, I was doom scrolling and Arcane dropped a trailer, so I was getting a lot of Arcane content. Well, among the Arcane content came an interview with Jinx's voice actor, Ella Purnell. In the interview, she said something that really caught my attention. She said that she cried reading the finale for the script. Now, crying doesn't necessarily always a bad thing, it could be tears of joy, but she would soon later drop another quote saying, "No one's going to feel good after watching this." Now, obviously, she can't be speaking for everybody, but that's a pretty bold statement, right? So it made me start to wonder, why would she say that? Why could possibly not a single person be happy? And I don't know any characters in the show other than lead characters that could create that much emotional damage if they were to pass. And I took a deeper look into what League actually is, a game where 10 other people and I are put onto a little thing called the Summoner's Rift, and we farm gold, kill henchmen, and whenever we kill the other person, they'll respawn in 23 seconds. It's not necessarily canon, quote unquote. So why would we assume that Jinx has to live to be part of that? And now that I've opened your mind up a little bit to the theory that Jinx might be beyond cooked, we can actually take a deeper look into what the story presents to us. If you're anything like me and you self-diagnosed yourself with ADHD like a long time ago, then you probably also got yelled at by your friends or family for spoiling movie plot lines as you were watching them, and they accused you of watching it, but really the serial killer was just getting way too much screen time, so like it had to be him. Well, I'm about to burst your bubble, but don't worry, my bubble was bursted too. And this is why my bubble was bursted. Scriptwriters are actually purposefully giving you bits of information, just enough so that you can kind of come to the conclusion and like set the direction as to where the story's going, but not enough to the point where you could click off feeling satisfied having your answer. And when you actually get to that answer, you're going to feel very satisfied, and in turn you're actually going to associate this satisfaction with your enjoyment for the show. And for example, if like you're watching season 8 of Game of Thrones and nothing really correlates and you aren't able to guess anything and they're just using shock value over time, you're going to be a little bit upset and probably call it the worst season of television ever. Why does this matter though? Well, Arcane is no exception to this either. Arcane also sprinkles in clues and guides us in a sense of direction, just kind of like, where are we going? When we get there, we're going to associate it with a good story being well written. Some examples are literally the first episode, where we keep seeing that Jinx over and over again kind of causes lots of problems whenever she's trying to help. And then we see that finally realized in the end of Act 1, where Jinx trying to help accidentally killed her entire family. So, where does the theory start? First, it starts with Vander and Silco, the two adoptive fathers of Jinx. Why do they point towards Jinx's death? Because they both have already died in their own right. See, the writers of Arcane have set up Vi and Jinx and Vander and Silco to parallel each other. Some of the most clear signs being Vander is the elder sibling who brute forces his way through a lot of things, and Silco, the younger, validation-seeking sibling who uses unconventional gadgets and tools to make his way through fights. Does this sound familiar? But it's not necessarily parallelism. It's actually something called reverse parallelism. What is reverse parallelism? Well, let me teach you. So let's say Vander, right? He's an A1, B1. And Silco, he's a A2, B2. Okay, so theoretically we come down to Vi and Jinx, but Vi has an A1, which represents being the elder and kind of being like the leader, but she has a B2. And then we come over to Jinx. She has an A2, but she has Vander's B1, which means the B1 represents what is kind of being tossed at her. Like, what problems are we giving her? What is she going to do? An example of this is literally the show starts with Vander leading a rebellion against the people above the underground, and the show ends with Jinx starting a rebellion with the people above the underground, kind of reinforcing that Jinx has Vander's B1. And then obviously, for Jinx having an A2, I mean, Silco, the reason why he saved Jinx is because he saw himself in Powder, and then obviously when they go to the lake and they dump her, that also kind of reinforces like they're the same person. It's just reinforcing the parallels. Now, you might be thinking, well, if it's reverse parallelism, doesn't that mean that both Jinx and Vi are supposed to live? Not necessarily. In every movie or show or any story in general, there's usually a thematic question, and the story is kind of used to explore that thematic question. Movies is typically what the main character represents an answer to the question, but TV shows are a bit different because multiple characters can represent multiple different answers to the thematic question. The thematic question in Arcane is, can you overcome where you were born, or are we destined to be shaped by them? Now, why does that mean that Jinx might be cooked? Simple. Jinx already answered the question. She answered it when she R'd the freaking council and they all got blown up. She let the underground shape her, and all 9 episodes was Powder like trying to live on and stay pure, and Vi was in her only tie back to Powder. But when she did that, she was kind of like cutting off Vi, and she was like, I'm gonna be Jinx. Jinx even reinforces this because she knows that Jinx is not Powder, and she says,
but he didn't make Jinx. You did. I'm sorry.
So the end of season 1 is the answer. You can't overcome where you've been. But we're getting a season 2. So that means that once again, Jinx is going to be thrusted in front and she's going to be asked the same question. But this time, there's going to be different circumstances thrown at her. And we're going to see if Powder can come back. Now, remember, you might again be thinking, it's reverse parallelism. Doesn't that mean that both Jinx and Powder are going to live? And that was my original thought when I first watched the series. But remember, Eliper said not a single person will be happy at the end of this. Now that you understand like the technical aspects and the clues on the wall, let's finally get into how I think Jinx is gonna die. Sacrifice. The writers of Arcane love keeping it very simple. How did Vander die? The person that Jinx has the B1 of? A sacrifice. Now, remember how I said that television uses multiple characters for different answers? Well, Vander's sacrifice was an answer to the question. Vander, who spent many years trying so hard to change what the underground had made him, but when thrusted in a final confrontation, he goes crazy, berserk. He taps back into who he used to be, fighting all the thugs, the criminals, and eventually taking the berserk medicine in order to save Vi. And Silco says these powerful words that reinforce this answer.
I knew you still had it in you.
I knew you still had it in you. Saying that Vander had never truly changed, or it was impossible to completely change, and that no matter what, the small part of you that, was who you were will always be there. And I believe Vi is going to play a similar role. Remember, before all of this, Silco was trying to bring Vander onto his side, bring him back.
We have the power. We can finally realize our dream. brother.
And I believe that Vi, in a less cynical way, is going to try and bring Powder back. Now, in the technical issues of the show, I don't necessarily know what direction they're going to go or how they're going to end up in this position for sacrifice. But remember, who did Vander sacrifice himself for in the final end? Vi. So I think they're going to be a little bit on the dot there, and Jinx will sacrifice herself, maybe in a way like using more of her berserk mode, and she'll save Vi at the cost of her own life. But during her death, we're going to see a more happier version of her, openly loving to Vi, which will signify that Powder has returned. And I believe that they're going to tie it all back together with Silco's line. I knew you still had it in you. And who will be delivering this line? The person that has Silco's B1. Vi. But this time it's going to be in a more heartfelt way, saying Powder has returned once again. And it'll be an answer to the question. Yes, where we are born can affect the way we are shaped. But it does not fundamentally change us, and we get to come back. We can fight, we can strive. Vander changed, and yes, that small part of him was still there. But Silco's line also says that Vander was completely different. He had changed, he had become better. So that pretty much wraps up all the signs that I think that Jinx will die at the end of the season. And it might be sad, but I think it'll be one of the most beautiful character arcs ever. And a great answer to a great question that I think can provide a lot of help to a lot of people in real life. The situation that we were born in can affect us and shape us, but if we are willing and we are open, we can change. If you enjoyed this video, you like the content, then make sure to subscribe. I felt really passionate about making this kind of video, so I wanted to try it. Thank you for your time, and I hope you have a great day.